Hi, this is Kimberly Reuter, business advisor and supply chain expert, and welcome back to my podcast, The Morning Mood. We are in our third episode of my mini series called The Architects. And this mini series, we're focusing on the building of EU logistics for Amazon with the world famous Thorsten Runge is joining me. And he is going to pick up where we left off at our last episode, which is Amazon was trying to figure out how to deliver TVs and everything to people's doors in Europe. No carrier wanted to deal with it. And so Torsten came up with a solution. So tell us about that. How'd you fix this problem?
Yeah. I think I said the last time. So I wrote this white paper and
Yep, you
deliveries
did the OP1
for
document.
Amazon was um, one of the proposed solutions, right? Then it's always nice to write a paper, right? And everything sounds great, uh, and then people say like, "This is great, Thorsten. Go do it." Right, right. So
It was one of those easy to write, hard to implement situations.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Right. So yeah. But we went into the go do it mode, right?
yeah. And what
Uh,
year was this, by the way? So this is 28, 29,
uh, uh, uh,
2008, 2009?
I think it would be 2009. I think.
Okay. Yep.
Uh, yeah. So and then obviously you need to think about so okay, fine. I've got to. I wasn't worried about the numbers. I wasn't worried about it not working and so on, right? But then you have to get yourselves out of this um, mode of theorizing, right? And actually making it happen, right? And
Well, can we just pause there 1 second? Because I think there's a lot in what you just said, is that there's a lot of people out there who come up with ideas, but it is very hard to link the paper to the actual rubber on the road. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, a
yeah,
lot
yeah,
gets lost, and a lot of ideas, a lot of companies, a lot of everything does not make it off paper. Yeah.
absolutely, right? And it's really almost like for me, there's always like you're for so long on this kind of calculating, estimating, writing, planning, and so on and so
Yep.
on, right? And then then you actually have to do it. You have to get yourself. Well, I have to get myself out of that mode, right?
Yep.
And then actually start doing something, right?
Yeah.
So and as so often with Amazon, rather than spending millions, right, on, for example, well, you could have thought like, and some other companies do this, right? So someone goes and builds a massive transportation management system that will take 5 years, will cost a couple of million, and buying parcel delivery vans and renting properties and so on. Amazon doesn't want it, right?
No. I
What's
want to let's dig in on this because this is really important, and I talk about this in other parts of the podcast. Like, let's dig into this model on Amazon because what you just described is how most companies work, and it's what in software development we call a waterfall model, right? Like, build it all and then go. But Amazon was the OG agile development, and let's talk about that because it applied to everything: business, tech, finance, everything ran that way. Tell me about it.
Yeah. Yeah, so and it goes with the just do it at Amazon, right?
Yes.
So if you need to spend millions and hire 500 people and so on, that's not just do it, right?
Yep.
So we started really, really small, right? We rented one van, we employed one driver,
No, seriously?
yeah,
That's
and
amazing.
we rented one small property for like sorting parcels and so on. Um, to if you like act as a carrier delivery depot,
Yeah.
right? And then yeah, so we also had to. adjust a couple of things in Amazon systems because obviously
Oh,
in
obviously.
Amazon fulfillment centers didn't know that there was an Amazon carrier called Amazon. They only knew DHL, Royal Mail, etc., etc.
Yeah, there
Right?
was a whole
But
tech
what?
integration that had to be built for this. I remember that. It was
Yeah,
intense
yeah. So we
because
had
we
to,
had to also because we had to actually build the technology and the processes to manage packages like a carrier did because previously they just showed up, picked it up at the warehouse, magic happened, and it showed up at the customer's door. Now we had to gut all that magic, or you had to gut all that magic and figure out how it happened.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right. So, and then actually, I spent a couple of weeks in China where a lot of software development happened for Amazon at the time,
Hmm.
and just to build the very very basics. Yeah. So as in like, yeah, we accept the
Like they were connected. Like that's it.
yeah. Right. So here's just to make the Amazon systems, fulfillment systems
Talk.
recognize, okay, yes, there's a carrier called
Yes.
Amazon, and yes, we can print labels for boxes for that carrier, and so on, right? And then
And
actually,
back in 2009, like, this was intense, right? Because no one was doing this. So there were no, like, generalized API integrations. There was I mean, every integration with a carrier was like a 3 to 4 month, like, build, like, it was intense back there. We didn't have this concept of fluid last mile carriers.
yeah,
So you're really just building the basics of everything on how does Amazon even recognize multiple carriers beyond 3? Which is basically what we had.
yeah,
Yeah.
right. And the challenge doing this with um, the very very intelligent, very smart Chinese developers was that they were Chinese,
Yeah.
right? Because how do you explain to someone who's never been out of China, how deliveries work, how the road system works in Europe,
Yeah, everything.
right? You can't
Yes.
write software if you don't know what a road in Europe looks like, right?
Yeah.
And because deliveries in China
Are
um,
way different.
are completely different, right?
They're a
So
cash system, you pay when it's delivered, a lot of it's, like, individual deliveries, it's totally different
yeah,
than what you were dealing with, yeah. Yeah, so there was a bit of, like, a culture barrier is what I would call that, really.
totally, right?
Yeah.
But okay, we got it all done, of course, right? And then we were finally ready to call on our one man and a van delivery.
How long did it take you to build that, by the way? The tech that you needed, how long did that take?
I didn't take that long. I think it was about like 3 months.
Oh, yeah, that's pretty
Yeah.
fast.
So we just really kept it basic,
Yeah.
right? And yeah, so and then the evening before we actually were about to do the first deliveries, right? So we had the parcels in the delivery depot underneath,
Yeah?
and we sorted them on a kind of very, very basic conveyor belt, right? And then we realized actually we didn't have a routing system for the van.
To tell the driver where to go.
Yeah, right. So the
Yeah,
driver
that's
said, "Oh,
right.
I can do this,
He
right?
said,
So
"Oh, I
I'm
can
over
do
there."
it."
Yeah,
Yeah.
but okay, that obviously wouldn't work, right? And so I remember we had a super clever business analyst who overnight built a routing system, right? And actually, what he did, to me, I'll never forget this. It was mind-boggling. So we came into the depot the next morning to sort the parcels onto the van and then to confirm, scan to confirm they were on the van and so on. And then what the super smart business analyst did is he somehow connected Excel to Google Maps, right?
And created a route.
And created a route. And I was looking at this Excel spreadsheet with, I don't know, maybe 50 parcels or something like that. And they started shifting, like going up up, down, until they were in the right order and had linked into Google Maps, right? I th- that's how
Brilliant.
that's how I did it, right? So uh,
Brilliant. So we talk about scrappy, we talk about go, we talk about run, just do it, fail fast. That right there is the perfect example of let's link two known softwares to make them do what we know. We don't need to rebuild the wheel.
yeah,
We can work with what we already have.
yeah.
That's
Oh,
amazing.
and then we went with I went with a delivery driver. Well, actually, because there was kind of space enough for two passengers in the van, and went to the first address. Uh,
Yeah.
Rang the doorbell and said, "Good morning. This is a delivery from Amazon by Amazon." It's, uh,
And did they slam the door in your face or what happened?
no, no, they were expecting obviously the delivery anyway, right? Because that is
Yeah.
something someone had ordered, right?
Yep.
Those were not dummy orders; they were real
Yeah.
orders, right?
Yep.
And I think actually the first delivery, the person who we delivered to didn't even realize kind of and
Didn't even care.
why would you, right? When you're used to ordering from Amazon, and either Royal Mail
Yep.
will pop up or UPS or DPD or whoever, the
Yeah.
main thing is that you have your parcel. I think it
Yeah.
was only until not until delivery number 3 that someone said, "So are you from Royal Mail?" And we said,
Who
"No,
the hell
no,
are you?
no, listen, we're actually from Amazon, right?" And
Americans are much more suspicious. When we started doing we started last day or, last mile with couriers in the US. We were able to do that with couriers here. And so we got a lot of pushback in the US because all of a sudden the nice clean shaven man in a brown suit wasn't showing up. There was some guy in like a hoopty car with a cut off t-shirt and they were like, "What the hell?" So you guys didn't have those kind of pains there like we had in the United States.
no, it's funny you mentioned that. Actually, we never thought about uniforms anyway, and well, we didn't have
Oh,
any
we didn't either, yeah.
uniforms, right?
Yeah.
But you're right. Of course, in the UK as well, where we trialed all these first deliveries. Yeah, of course, a Royal Mail person would have a Royal Mail uniform, and
Yeah.
UPS and so on, right?
Yeah.
That's true. Actually, no one actually
Said
comment
anything there.
uh,
Oh, yeah, we had a lot of
on that.
pushback in the US with it, but they also weren't our drivers initially, right? We started with we were able to get couriers in the US to actually do the deliveries.
Mhm.
So we didn't jump to our own network like you did. I think you were a little bit ahead of the US on that, if I recall correctly. Maybe not. I'm sure somebody's gonna jump up and be like, "No, Kim, we did it first." And then we can hash it out on a podcast. But yeah, so we kinda had a lot of pushback on that, and we did have to sort of address it. Also, time was an issue. People were showing up at, like, 9, 10 o'clock at night, and that was also a problem.
Yeah, yeah, no,
Yeah.
that would not be very welcome here in Europe.
No.
Uh,
Alright, so you have built so let's just talk about what you built because it took 3 months for you to build it, but I don't think our audience will really understand what you actually built. Because you needed to build an ingestion system, you had to be able to sort, track the package while you still had it in your control to know where it was. You had to make sure that it got on a truck, and you had to build all this not for 1, right? Because you knew as soon as you did 1, it was going to 100, like, next week, right?
yeah,
It was
yeah,
just it was yeah, the 1 was just to make sure everything was plugged in. Um, so you had to build a system that, ingested the package, sorted the package. Eventually, you got to a port where you had to route the package, depend on the courier and the route and things like that. So what you built in 3 months was a pretty heavy duty system. It wasn't an Excel spreadsheet.
yeah. Um, and that's why I say like the developers in China, they were absolutely brilliant, right? But just to
Yeah.
be clear, with this 3 months development time, we really just had the basics, as in
Yeah.
get a box from a fulfillment center to a delivery depot onto a
Yeah.
van and delivered, right? And then
Okay.
obviously, once we're, if you like, proven the concept, right? Then a
Yes.
lot more work kind of started.
Okay.
Right? So, for
Yep.
example, routing software, right? So,
Yes.
which we obviously we were not going to operate based on Excel and Google Maps forever, right? And so the routing software, the working hours and shift times for the
Oh, yeah.
drivers,
Right.
and so on, and so on, and so on, right? So then really, there was a lot more development work necessary to really,
Oh, yeah.
if you like, be able to do it from start to finish, right, without any hacks and interventions and so on, and then build it in a way that it was actually scalable. Yeah.
Yes. All right, so you proved it out. You did one package, you ran one truck. I do remember kind of celebrating this on the US side as well, because I believe you took some pictures or videos of sort of the first route, and that was pretty exciting. So then what happened next? So proof of concept. As we know at Amazon, it wasn't like, hey, congratulations, go have a seat. It was run faster now, right?
Yeah, sure. And so proof of concept, and then first, also we scaled a little bit, right? So
Yes.
not to go out with just whatever 10, 20 boxes to deliver, right? So then we need to figure out like so to make it actually, if you like, commercially viable, right? I mean, I said
Mhm.
like in one of the previous episodes,
Yeah.
we knew that for a delivery van, you needed to do about 140 deliveries a day
Right.
to make that work, right? So we scaled in that sense, just with the.
Yeah.
I think then we got another two vans, right? So we scaled that, and yeah, and then we had to start planning actually how to really scale. As in, okay, we had like a tiny facility rented in Milton Keynes,
Yep.
and then the first question was, okay, where's the next one going to be? Yeah. Or
Yeah.
where are the next 10, 20, 30, or 50? Where are they going to be? Right. So the location question obviously is
Was
critical,
first.
right?
Yeah.
And discussions around obviously. So things like so the delivery drivers, will they be Amazon employees
Oh, I remember
or
this.
will
Yeah,
they
this was a
be
big deal.
contractors?
Yeah.
So all that and obviously there's a lot of legal stuff in there, right? So that we had to figure that out. Uh,
And this, if I recall correctly, this was kind of a labor disruptor as well because it was a different model than drivers are used to working with, wasn't it? There was something about, yeah, like if they were going to be employees, were they going to be contractors? How did this work? And the labor laws in EU were a little bit different. Yeah, we had to navigate kind of a whole new space.
yeah, absolutely, right. And what works in the UK in terms of a
Oh,
labor model doesn't mean it works in France
oh,
or,
that's right. Oh
or
shit, I forgot
Germany
about that.
or whatever,
Yeah,
right?
they were all different. Oh
Yeah.
shit.
So
Yep.
so we had to do this times three, right?
Yeah. And then eventually times 3 more and 3 more and 3 more,
Well,
right?
right. So
Yeah, I forgot about that. The labor laws and everything were different in every single country at that time. Yeah, I remember that being a pretty big hurdle for you in trying to build that. So, not only you trying to figure out what facilities you're gonna be in or where you're gonna build your next facilities, you also have to build this network, right?
yeah, absolutely. Right. So all the and once you have delivery depots, you need the hub as well, right? So you need that.
Yeah.
Um,
So you have to build software for in more languages. We've got to get it for all the different regions. We have to implement and start building warehouses in 3 different countries. Are you recruiting your own drivers at this time too?
at that time, we were recruiting. I'm trying to remember actually where they are. I think the first batch at least were Amazon employees.
Okay.
Um, and but I can't remember now when that actually changed.
Yeah,
Right.
it's
So,
murky about, yeah. We don't want to get into like get a lot of legal trouble. So
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. So, but it was really, I think what I'm trying to draw out of the conversation was that everything that you were doing was brand new. It wasn't that you went and found someone who was already doing it and you just ran a 3-month implementation and plugged into a system and a process that was already existed. You had to go and craft and build each piece of this, not just for Amazon, but for the industry.
Yeah. So when you say industry, so for a retailer, if you
Yep.
talk about retail industry, yes,
Yes.
that
Yes. Yes. For the retail e-commerce industry. Yes.
for the
Specifically for the e-commerce. Yeah.
e-commerce industry, yes,
Yeah.
that definitely that was a first that didn't exist,
Yeah.
right?
So how long did it take you to kind of build it to a mature model? And what was the size of it when you left?
So the size of it when I left, actually, not we. Um, uh, uh, so I think we had about 10 delivery depots in the UK. And I really can't remember now how many drivers and vans and so on, but it was very sizable, right? So
Yeah.
I remember, obviously, then we employed an operations manager, right?
Yep.
And a driver operations manager,
Yep.
and depot general manager to look after all
Yeah.
the depots and so on. Right? So then the kind of came, if you like, hierarchy, right?
Yeah.
So it was sizable
Yeah.
when I left, right?
When by the time you left. So you built something pretty significant.
You
Yeah.
could say that, yeah.
I could say. And now were you in other countries at that point? You just talked about the UK. Were you in other countries too?
We started to look at, we had just started to look at Germany as well,
Okay.
actually.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think you had just started working on Germany
Yeah,
about
yeah,
that
yeah.
time. Okay, excellent. Fabulous. So thank you for telling us how you did your implementation and how you made this happen. We are going to come back on our next episode and we are going to talk about how what Torsten built lives on today in the e-commerce logistics industry. So thank you, my audience, for being here. This architecture series is really exciting. We've got a lot of great new guests lined up for this. People are really excited to participate in this positive message about how people changed the e-commerce world. So stay tuned. We will be back shortly with episode 4, and I will talk to you tomorrow.